Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. We have some breaking news to cover around Palantir. Now, I say breaking news because it is interesting, and it's interesting that the community was able to find this stuff and we were able to do some deep digging, but it's not like the most breaking news in the world in terms of something that's necessarily going to move the stock or be like this monumental shift for the company. And I know this because I talked to some people, especially CodeStrap this weekend, to really understand this news around why Palantir is in the name with Google and what's kind of going on. So let's get right into it. This is the article that started floating around this week that was pretty serious. So Elliott is appointed to head of AI solutions at the Google public sector. So let's read a little bit about this to fully understand this. And where does Palantir come in? It will come in a second. Google's government and education arm has named cloud analytics executive Steve Elliott as its head of artificial intelligence solutions. According to his profile on LinkedIn, Elliott will collaborate with public sector customers in his new role to deliver cloud and artificial intelligence technologies with a particular focus on leveraging the Palantir Foundry platform. What this means is that this guy is basically a consultant. He's going to go to public sector customers. You're talking about the state colleges of the world. You're talking about, high schools and K through 12 districts. Education is like kind of the main thing that's in the public sector, right? He might be going to like governments and townships and municipalities. So this guy is going there and he's trying to sell GCP, Google Cloud Partners. Now, the way to sell Google Cloud Partners is to offer really, unique benefits, and cloud storage is not that unique of a benefit from Google because like AWS probably can do it, Microsoft can do it, right? So it's just a question of sales at that point and penetrating the market. But he's trying to give artificial intelligence technologies mixed within the cloud. Well, what platform do we know does really good artificial intelligence technologies with a focus on data? Palantir Foundry, which means that Palantir Foundry is being sold almost in partnership with Google Cloud. So it's like, kind of you're selling a joint package with both products, and that will be able to allow public sector companies to be able to use them in a more meaningful way, or public sector customers to use them in a more meaningful way. So Elliott began as a career for a recruiter for companies such as Stride and Associates. This goes back into his like history. Now it's interesting. The executive spent over 8 years with AWS. Makes sense, where he worked in the worldwide public sector division. Again, these are institutions that are not private companies, so they have different needs in terms of their data storage and spend. Collaborating with global higher education clients and helping them to expand the usage of AWS professional services in educational institutions and settings. I remember in my high school we used AWS, and I could always see the .aws on like PDFs that we opened from our school website. So that makes a lot of sense. So the big news here is that he's working with Palantir Foundry. Now this was another piece of news that I got. I got this sent over the weekend on Discord, and it was a really interesting screenshot that I think is important for everyone to understand. Palantir Foundry on Google Cloud. This product is only available through private pricing. And as you can see, Google Cloud Platform, there's a legitimate link for this. I'll put it in the description. Google Cloud Platform, if you were to go to this website, this link is selling the Palantir Foundry software. Overview. Palantir Foundry is the world's leading platform for data-driven operation and decision-making. This technology, forged through years of direct experience with complex institutional data challenges, reunifies companies around their central mission. It enables them to become fully digitally connected companies. About managed services. Managed services are fully hosted, managed, and supported by the service providers. Although you register with the service provider to use the service, Google handles all the billing, which means Google will be like charging the customers for the actual like money they're spending, and they're going to be giving a percentage of that to Palantir. Now, type. Palantir is a SaaS and API. This was last updated November 8th, 2021. So it seems like Google has been selling Palantir to its clients from an artificial intelligence perspective in the context of cloud technologies since November. And as you can see, additional details, the software runs on Palantir Technologies cloud servers as they're selling it with Google. And this is the Google GCP marketplace, right? Google Cloud Providers Marketplace. Now, what does this mean in general? So I talked to CodeStrap about this because this is interesting stuff, right? And obviously it's going to get people excited because they're like, oh my goodness, like Palantir, Google, collaboration. Google doesn't want to beat Palantir. They want to collaborate with them. This is like great for the stock. There's a couple things he said that I really want to write. So he said, it looks like a legit profile, but he's basically a consultant. His job is to talk to customers and try to sell them solutions. Given Palantir's low customer count, my guess is he likes Foundry but refers them to Palantir, which means that whatever impact this would have is baked into the cake. It's not newsworthy that Palantir runs on GCP, which I kind of like, it made sense to me, because if this was some big breaking news that Palantir runs on GCP, which by the way, Palantir can run on AWS, Palantir can run on Azure, right? These are just cloud hosting providers, and Palantir is the ML ops kind of layer above it, which is what CodeStrap has been talking about for the past couple of weeks as he's been doing a lot of interviews. Then they can, you don't have to get rid of your Snowflake, AWS, you don't have to get rid of any of these softwares. Like Palantir integrates with them. Palantir offers this ontology layer that is also very interesting to understand the unification of your data and how to make sense of that data for business intelligence. But it's not something that necessarily has to replace it, even though CodeStrap was saying it, like in the future, it theoretically could replace it. Now, his argument was if Google was actually using Foundry, that would be huge news, but that's not likely for a lot of reasons, which makes sense. Google is likely not going to be running on Palantir Foundry. I mean, Google's not going to be running on AWS. They're going to be running on GCP. They're going to use their own stuff, right? Whenever you see solutions in a title, it means sales. They sell solutions, meaning some cobbled together set. If GCP services are a reference architecture, these are non-technical folks. I agree with that. This guy was like a public consultant for AWS for 8 years, so he wasn't really a technical guy. If his title was the director of AI at Google, it would be more intriguing, which makes more sense, right? Because this guy is like head of cloud public AI technologies servers, or whatever his thing is. What is his head of AI solutions at Google public sector, not necessarily the director of artificial intelligence at Google, which is a much more, just like important role when it comes to making decisions. So he says it is not a joint partnership. It is just a PAAS. And what is a PAAS? It is a platform as a service, is a complete development and deployment environment in the cloud with resources that enable you to deliver everything from simple cloud-based apps to sophisticated cloud-based enterprise applications, which means that it's not a joint partnership of them working together. It's just the ability for Google to sell additional services through GCP that Palantir probably wants them to do, because Palantir doesn't have the best sales force. So it's a benefit for both things, and there are a lot of vendors who provide platforms as a service. And that was kind of the analysis. And I really needed to talk to CodeStrap about this because obviously I'm just like, this is pretty cool. This is interesting. But I also had this hesitation. I was getting DM after DM, question after question of just like, yo, like, are they working together? What does this mean? And it's like, yes, they are working together, but not in the way we want them to work together. Not in terms of like Google's using Palantir to run their operations, right? Google is a Palantir client. Like, that's not happening. And there's a lot of reasons from a competition perspective, Google would not want that to happen. But Google also recognizes, look, it's kind of like the consulting contracts with Accenture and Jacobs. So Jacobs is an engineering consulting firm that sells like really complex engineering solutions, and Accenture is just like a pretty big consulting firm that sells any strategic solutions. And they have partnered with Palantir because their argument is like, look, our job as a provider of solutions is to give the best solution. So when a client comes to us and say, hey, we have this problem, if Palantir's data analytics software, if their Foundry tools can actually resolve that problem, and the middleman, Accenture and Jacobs, they like work with Palantir to integrate a solution based upon like the consulting firm's expertise and then obviously Palantir's technology into the client's hand, I mean, that's a win-win for everyone, because now the client has the best solution, which means they're going to keep paying the consulting firm because the consulting firm created the best solution. The platform, Palantir, in this example, would get another customer, so they have more chances to get revenue. And then the consulting firm does a good job, and they get more consistent, business because they are able to provide really strategic solutions. This is the exact same thing I believe that's happening with GCP. They're like, hey, the Palantir does something that we don't do. And because we don't do this, we can recommend Palantir to customers that need AI in the context of the cloud. We do the cloud. We don't really do the AI as well as Palantir does it. So if we recommend them together, we can sell our services and we get to sell this additional services with Palantir, which is what any consulting firm does, right? We get to sell our strategic consulting, but we also get to sell a really unique product that we don't really benefit off of, but that we benefit off of in the long term, because that means that our solution was really good. Our recommendation ultimately was very good. And I guess like the key bullish element here is that Google probably would never be recommending Palantir Foundry if they were creating a direct competitor, or if they were just like, no, we don't want you to have any level of the market. So I guess that there's the analysis there, which is just like, okay, so Google, like, they're recommending Palantir primarily because they realize that at least in the public sector for the cloud, which maybe is not the biggest sector for them, which is why they're allowing the integration to happen there. I don't know. But their argument might be, well, we can't really compete with Palantir in this context, so why don't we just like bundle up the services so at least we can get some more money out of it and provide a better solution. That is where the real bullish shine to me comes. It's not the context of Palantir running on Google Cloud providers, because Palantir runs on any cloud operating system, because it's not a cloud operating system. It's a fundamentally different product. But like the fact that Google is actually willing to recommend them to clients means that maybe, and again, I got to do more digging on this, but means that maybe that Google doesn't really care of recommending Palantir because they don't really care about competing with them in this particular sector. That's sort of my thoughts and sort of my overall analysis on this. As a consultant, I've said this before, your job is to provide really strategic solutions and advice. And if GCP is not a consultant, but this guy that's selling it is the consultant, right? He's the chief salesman when he goes to meet with these high universities that need to have cloud service providers and that are also looking for some really unique technology to help them make sense of the data that they have. Palantir can be integrated right on top of GCP. And again, there are some other Palantir competitors. Now, there's not a real competitor, but there's are solutions that say they could do the same thing that Palantir does. There's a reason Google's not recommending them, right? Google's not recommending DataWalk for a reason. They're recommending Palantir because that integration makes sense. So overall, I think this is bullish. I think this makes sense. I think in the future, if we see a real joint partnership, if we see a real joint offering in which they're working together, that could also be really interesting. But as of now, it seems to be that they're just a PAS, a platform as a service. Google is happy to provide Palantir's service to other clients, and Palantir is obviously happy to have Google's distribution give them new clientele, and they should be bullish for the company going forward. But it's not something that Wall Street's going to react to. It's not, the thing is, if this was a real press release, like a formal introduction of a joint partnership, this would be a real press release. This would be like something that they make a really big deal out of. They're not, because I think we've known that Google and Palantir and AWS, they all work together at the end of the day. The question is, can Palantir take some of their lunch? And that's where, we're going to see what happens over the next 3-4 years. So those are my thoughts. That's my analysis. We will see what happens in the future. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave your thoughts in the comments. What did you think when you originally saw this news? I mean, were you kind of like mind blown? Because I kind of was. But because of the buzz that didn't exist around this news, I also was like, wait a second, something's a little fishy. It can't be like that insane of news. But ultimately, we're gonna see how it goes going forward. Thank you guys for watching. Check out dailypalantir.com. It is my new publication where I update Palantir news every day. You guys can check it out and read some of the articles there. It's hopefully a good curation of Palantir content in a centralized place where you guys can get all the information. Thank you for watching. Looking forward to your comments. I'll see you in the next one.